Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
To the social media derby. We've got a great episode this week. Obviously some big breaking news over the last couple of days that have got me wearing my United kits again, so we'll get through that. And we've got a very special guest. Lincoln's in for Jonty, late 90th in 90 plus minute injury time substitution. The boy's out with kidney stones, so we brought in the big guns, brought in the real big guns to talk through the Arsenal Liverpool and then probably laugh at us because United did lose a game this week. So yeah, welcome, Lincoln. How you doing, bro? You good?
I'm good, my guy. I'm sad to hear about Jonty, about the kidney stones thing. Got to drink more water. Drink more water. That's all I'll say on that.
Bro, we've been
public
killing
service
him.
announcement.
We've been killing him in the group chats, just saying, man, drink water and stop eating so much salt. But he is in China, so you know it ain't as easy to get away from the flavors as it is here in good old England. But anyway, before we get into the pod, we'll do all the the pleasantries and all that. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, especially if they're agreeing with our points. That will be greatly appreciated. If not, we'll also debate you in the comments as well. We love that. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other the audio platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that helps with the algorithms and getting out to more viewers and listeners and expanding the podcast. So yeah, it's greatly appreciated. All right, Lincoln, let's not mess about, man. Let's talk about the big topic. It's happened super quick. I thought when we were planning the podcast for this week, I thought, to be honest, I didn't think Ineos were going to pull the trigger and sack him in the first place. And then when that news broke, I think it was Ornstein dropped it first, and then Fabrizio tried to jump on it real quick afterwards. I thought we'll just talk about Ten Hag, and it was going to be the Ten Hag Memorial, but it's actually the Ten Hag Memorial, and also it looks like the Ruben Amorim incoming or welcome party. So let's get into the Ten Hag point first. I'll share my points after you, but we obviously haven't had you on the pod for a little bit. Do you think it's the right decision now to sack Ten Hag, or do you think we should have kept him for a bit longer, or do you agree with some people that think we should maybe have sacked him in the summer?
First of all, yeah. The first thing I would say is it is 100% the right decision. I don't really understand the narrative that because you've appointed him past the summer that you have to wait until the next summer. If he's the wrong manager, he's the wrong manager. Sack him. Be done with it. The thing that I will say is you should have done it already. But just because you made a mistake 3 months ago doesn't mean you have to keep making a mistake for the next 6 months. So that's where I'm at. It's like, because it's ridiculous, really. Because now Amarin's going to come in. It's almost a little bit too early to write up the season. You're already, there's 9 games in. There's still a lot of football to be played, but this is not Amarin's players. It's not. He doesn't have a preseason. It's kind of a free hit for him a little bit, but the thing is with United, the kind of the stress and the drama and the strife around the club makes it so that it might be very, very difficult. But I can't see past it being a bad decision. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. Our fan base is generally pretty toxic anyway. I feel like the whole birth of this podcast idea in the first place was around the idea that Arsenal and United fans are the most loudly heard on social media and have some of the wildest, most toxic opinions, and we like to banter each other and stuff. But I have to admit, this first month and a half of this season has been a new low point for toxicity in the United fan base. Ten Hag inners versus Ten Hag outers, people cussing each other about eating biryani, all kinds of crazy stuff's going on, and like it's a new low, bro. Like I thought, I thought them AFTV days was like the bottom of the barrel, but I don't know. We may have overtaken it. So I think that is a reflection of where we are. Obviously, we're sitting in 14th, so I can't argue with anyone that says this had to be done. And I can't argue with anyone that says we should have done it in the summer. I think with hindsight, and some people might say you shouldn't have needed hindsight, we finished 8th, minus goal difference, salvaged the season with an FA Cup win, where we also could have lost and gone out to Coventry after being 3-0 up. You know, like there were signs. We can't act like there hasn't been signs that this was the right decision. But I'm just of that old school opinion, you got to try and hold on for as long as possible. And when you have sprouts or shoots of positivity in there, even if they are covered in just like, you know, acres of weeds, you still got to look for them and try and, you know, give it the best shot you can, give it the most time you can. But yeah, it was obvious. I think probably even 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said on the pod, like, I can't even try and fight against the Ten Hag outers. I don't really like getting into the in and out stuff, but I can't disagree with them when they say, what the hell are we doing? He's not getting the best out of the players. He's talking absolute rubbish in the press conferences. Stick to the plan, stick to the plan. You know, there's got to be some sort of emotional intelligence to understand when you keep losing games, you can't continually find excuses and point to, you know, I don't know, the idea that he needs more time or he needs more players or we've had injuries. You know, we're in the 3rd season. I don't think you can, that those excuses can cut it anymore. So I agree with you, bro. I think the decision's 100% right. I also think with hindsight, probably should have done it in the summer. But I totally, again, agree with you that just because you didn't do it in the summer, you don't have to be stubborn and go, we're going to hold on until the whole end of the season. We're in 14th, bro. We're in 14th.
I mean, to be honest, there is a part of me that thinks that Ineos, like the kind of the conspiracy brain part of my brain, that, to be honest, as an Arsenal fan, has been buzzing. That little groove in my brain that says everyone's against you. That's just super. that is starting to buzz. But I do think for United, I think Ineos played this actually really, really cleverly. They looked at the beginning of the season. They couldn't see a manager, even though they knew that Ten Hag is not the option long term. I think that's perfectly clear. They knew that Ten Hag, because they were looking for another manager.
Yeah, it was obvious.
But it was obvious. So I think they kind of saw the kind of lay of the land. They've been doing the due diligence behind the scenes in the last 3 months or so, and they've identified Amorim, and they knew that eventually things would probably get so bad that, you know, it would be useful to throw Ten Hag under the bus. He was a useful idiot. I thought, personally, it would be until at least we get to like December, January, and the kind of the fixtures start piling up, and then you can kind of say, look, this guy can't cut it, and we'll get someone else in. And you know, but while this is happening, you know, Ineos has distance from it. No one can kind of criticize them, but now they can say, look, that wasn't our guy. This is our guy. The guy we're bringing in now. Oh, that was in the past. Like, oh yeah, we tried our best. So I do think it was like kind of Ineos have played a blinder here in terms of how things have gone. They also haven't had the best press with them, like, you know, kind of all of the kind of austerity stuff that they're doing.
Sal's out. He's at Celtic watching games instead of watching United games.
Yeah, people have to eat their lunches in the toilet and stuff, and tea ladies getting fired. Like, this is not good press. But if you get rid of Ten Hag, all of that can kind of fade into the background. And like now, you've got a shiny new toy, a handsome new manager, all the way from Portugal.
He's got hair, bro. You know what? I'm so glad I'm out of this like bald manager bloody rivalry that everyone's got a bald manager. My bald manager's better than yours. Like, finally, we got a manager with hair again. He's got, like you said, nice beard. He's out here in his own lane. You know what I mean? There's not too many managers with hair and beards.
Let me just say something. You know, it's very important that your manager makes an effort. He doesn't have to be good looking, but he just has to make an effort.
Yeah, he
tries. What was
one
of the first things that Klopp did when he came to Liverpool?
Oh, he had a glow up. Remember? Man's
Yeah, my man got
He got his hair done, his teeth
got
done.
his teeth done, all of that. Like, this is important to people because it shows that you care. You don't want to have your manager out there looking clapped. Like, that's not what anyone wants.
No, I hear you, man. It's true. It's true, and I think it's there's elements of that. That's I still remember that TalkSport thing. Was it Simon Jordan or something that was absolutely gunning Ten Hag in his first few weeks for saying his suit was too big and it didn't fit him, and he looked like he's like wasn't able to fill his suit, and it just talking about his appearance completely. And at the time, I was like, "Come on, bro, stop talking shit. That's got nothing to do with a manager's abilities." But at the same time, I think what became really obvious, and this is why last week I was twerking for Thomas Frank, bro. It was a new low as well on the fan base, and it's because there was like he's got some sort of charisma. He's very obvious that they can communicate really well, and I think that was key for a manager. I'm beyond the tactico hype of who can move the little the little chessboard pieces on on the whiteboard to wherever. I don't care about that at this point. All managers have coaches and setups and whatever that have that tactical nous. There are very few managers these days that have no tactical knowledge whatsoever and are just going out and giving back rubs and saying, "Go on, lads, good luck." Maybe Southgate only. But the most important thing that we lacked, I think, with Ten Hag was the charisma, the communication skills, and the ability to motivate a group of players. Because let's be real, right? When you're at a top club, it's fine margins. A lot of these players are of a similar level in terms of their ability and their skill set. You need to try and maximize what you can get out of them and squeeze the most juice out of them. And it's very obvious that Ten Hag has not done that. And at points, he's actually wasted a lot of the talent that we have. And so, yeah, it is a good sign when I'm watching all these comps and videos, even press conferences of Amorim. Our fans are absolutely going, crazy with their excitement about it. But it's like there are little bits which already give me a different feeling to Ten Hag. It feels like he's got a better grasp of the language. It feels, again, like you said, his appearance, he's like takes care of himself. He's trying to make a good impression. And then hearing him talk about certain things, both in English and Portuguese, it seems like he's got that charisma that you need to try and lead a team in modern football. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. And to be honest, I didn't think we would go for him when I was looking at the options that the bookies were touting us to go for. I didn't even think Amorim was. I was hoping we'd go for someone like that, but I honestly thought we would Ruben Nistelrooy until the end of the season, and then maybe try and get an Amorim or a Nagelsmann or someone of that ilk, and then see where we land. Because it's still possible they reject us and we end up doing a Tottenham and go down 5th or 6th on the list and get someone like a Thomas Frank. But I'm surprised, man. I'm pleasantly surprised. But I agree with you. Jokes aside, it is important to have a manager that has those soft skills beyond just being a football man. And I kind of overlooked that a little bit, because you go the fist pump hype with Klopp and all that kind of stuff. But there is an element of that is really true, like inspiring the players and inspiring the fan base. And clearly Ten Hag failed, not only tactically, right, with the way that we've been playing and being exposed by rubbish teams. Let's be honest. We'll get to the West Ham game in a bit, but West Ham are stinking it up, and still somehow they managed to beat us. But then also just in press conferences talking madness and clearly falling out with players constantly. Yeah, it was not sustainable. We had to move on. Yeah. And what do you think about Amorim? First of all, have you caught much of his sporting team? Obviously, they played Arsenal a few seasons back, but apart from that, have you seen much of him? And how highly do you rate him?
I have to be honest, I've got very little experience. Beyond the 60 games that I watch of Arsenal and the other 50 that I watch of Manchester City, I don't really watch much Portuguese football. Yeah, I do know. I did hear something quite interesting though, that he kind of, it was really interesting. Someone made a nice parallel, which was that he's coming in. He's in Portugal. Portugal have two giants, and that's Benfica and Porto, and he's kind of coming as a third, as a kind of dominated with the third club, Sporting Lisbon. They're not kind of like natural champions the way that Benfica and Porto are. And he's come in, he's kind of broken that duopoly. And that reminds me of a different manager, with who once upon a time was also stuck in a league with a duopoly, and he came in and he broke that. That's obviously Sir Alex with Aberdeen. So there is kind of precedence for this, kind of nice little symmetries. The thing that I will say is a lot of people talk about, this how United fans are so happy, basically just like, we'll take anyone. This is a big opportunity for this guy. This is a really big opportunity to come in and, there's an argument, and I'd ask you a question of you maybe after this. Do you think, when Arteta came in for Arsenal, who do you think is lower? Do you think Arsenal was at a lower place than United are now? Or do you think United are at a lower place than Arsenal were back in the day when Arteta came in? That's an open question. I think Amorim's going to come in, like, look, man, anything. Make them good contenders again, top four. Get them playing good football. Get something out of some of the younger players. Move some of those older players along. Whatever you do, you've got a blank canvas and you've got a really big chance of doing really, really well here. United will spend money. They always spend money. The other thing that I've also heard, of course, is that he prefers to play a back three, which is why Liverpool didn't go in for him.
Yeah.
Man, that United team, the defenders might be set up for a back three, but I don't know if they have the legs to run it. So that's another issue. But, get the guy in, build a team around him, give him a couple of seasons, and who knows? It can happen really quickly. That's what I've learned with Arsenal recently.
Yeah. I mean, you started that, just you've setting us up for failure, even slightly barely hinting at a Sir Alex Ferguson type background. I'm like,
you got a dream. It makes sense. It makes sense.
And I was thinking, who are you talking about then for a minute? I was thinking, Klopp was Dortmund. They were in the duopoly. Oh, Mourinho. Yeah, Porto were one of the duopoly. Who are you talking about? And then you drop this Alex, and I'm like, oh no, like our fans are going to do that already. We don't need rival fans already gassing 100%. It up. But you know what? I obviously haven't seen too much of him either. I'll be real. I'm not going to lie about it. I've seen Sporting play a few times when they've played English teams in the Champions League or Europa League, and they look good. But I mean, it's too small of a sample size to really take that and then say that's like how they played week in, week out. I believe they got spanked by PSV the other week in the Champions League recently. So, they're not a perfect team. They still kind of are what they are. Like you said, kind of a third wheel in the Portuguese league, trying to break up the dominance of Benfica and Porto. I think it was 19 years or 20 years or something they hadn't won a title. And then there was that kind of Klopp Liverpool slander where they won it during COVID or something without fans. And then everyone said they couldn't do it again. And they went on and won it last season. So, obviously it's good to get a manager who's got some sort of pedigree like that. But again, I like the comparison you made to Arteta, and I will answer that question. But first of all, I think they are kind of similar. Maybe Amorim has slightly more experience because he's had the couple of years at Sporting, but he's still really young. I still think he's in his 30s, right? So he's still really inexperienced, and he's never taken on a job of this size. So there are parallels in that perspective. But weirdly enough, I think we've got better players now than you guys had when Arteta took over. I think you had loads of bums when he took over, I'll be real. I don't think your league position was as low as we've been. It was probably, I can't remember where Emery had you, but I don't think it was as perilous as 14th. But I do know it wasn't the greatest start to that second season. And that's the reason why he got booted. But I think it was more...
No, I would say, sorry, and I think that we were actually at one point, because I remember Roy Keane making jokes about us being relegated or something. So I think we were at the very bottom half.
Maybe. I can't really remember that. I feel like that Emery second season just like it just fast forwarded when the vibe got bad. Like it all just like mushed up into one, and before you know it, it was gone and Arteta was in. So I kind of can't even remember where you guys were, but I don't know, it just didn't feel as bad as it does now. But obviously United's my team, so I'll probably feel it worse. But I think you had worse players for sure. I don't actually think our players are that bad. And we've obviously had the turnover of players under Ten Hag. I think probably a more similar or kind of apples for apples comparison is when is when Ralph Ragnick left and Ten Hag took over. I think our squad was in a similar position to your squad at that time. Then we had so many, players that were running down contracts, and I think Phil Jones was still there, and Pogba and Martial, and a bunch of players that we have been trying to get rid of. So I think now coming in, Amorim's got a better squad to work with, and he's probably, from a defensive perspective, I think has got the right number of centre-backs, first of all, to play his back three. We've got 6 centre-backs, so who knows? There's some conspiracy theorists out there that are saying we kind of built the squad with the idea that at some point we needed to sack Ten Hag and Amorim was our number one choice, which from that planning perspective would make kind of sense because we got Euro and De Ligt in the summer when we already had 4 centre-backs. So, that could be true, or there could be some truth in it. But I agree with you, in the midfield, I don't think we've got the right players to carry out what he needs or what he asks for his 2-man midfield pivot. Like, you need people with engines. And Ugarte may have that, but I'll be honest, I've been unimpressed by him so far. And he hasn't looked quite as strong and powerful as I thought he would be. But who knows? Maybe he's not up to speed yet, and we'll see that over time. And I'll say, as much as I love him, Kobbie's not got legs. So that throws into doubt whether or not, he will fit that system, or, kind of how he's going to work under Amorim if he plays the same way. There are problems, but I do think it will probably take less work than we've needed under previous managers recently. I think we've kind of undergone the big facelifts, like 7 and 8 man summers where we've bought loads of players in the last couple of years. So he'll probably want a few man in, but I don't think it will be that drastic. And I'm excited, man. There's a part of it like going back into the unknown again and not really knowing too much about a manager, and just kind of seeing where you shake out. And eventually, you got to hope that these rolls of the dice, one of them's going to come out with the number that we're looking for. But I'm going to back him like I back Ten Hag, and hopefully, I think the big thing is, apart from charisma and all the soft skills, I hope he just sticks to his principles. Because I'll be honest, the first time the Ten Hag kind of alarm bell rang was when he was talking about not continuing his Ajax like kind of philosophy when he was at United, and how he has to change it and adapt to the club and the players and all that kind of stuff. And I think these days in modern football, your manager needs to be unrelenting in his idea and his philosophy. Tactically, he can be flexible, but you can't show outwardly to the public that you're so willing to abandon certain principles. And I think Ten Hag went really wrong with that. So I hope Amorim doesn't make the same mistakes.
That's interesting that you see it as a mistake. I think definitely it's a function of the dressing room that he inherited. Like you said, there were a bunch of people on really big contracts. He was clearly not the number one like personality in the dressing room. Okay, cool. There was the blood sacrifice. Like we got rid of Cristiano Ronaldo. But, you can't really, it was very difficult for him, I think, given who he was in the game and the stature of the players that he had in the dressing room, to come in and just say, this is how you'll play. I don't think Amorim will have that problem. The age of the team is much, much younger, and the profile of the players aren't as big as when Ten Hag came in. So I think younger players, the players who are recently signed, it's not like, okay, Diogo Dalot's fine, but like, is Dalot like a United legend? I don't know. People
not after this weekend.
We'll get to that. People aren't going to go to bat for him. If he wants to throw half the squad out, like no one's going to be upset, with the exception of maybe Kobe Mainoo or someone like that. So I do think he comes in at a really good time for him, and that's also my favorite thing when a new manager comes in is who's the first to go. I love that because every manager has to make an example. Maresca did it with Sterling. It's always a thing. You come in and there has to be a blood sacrifice. So I wonder who that's going to be at United.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fans are calling for the Bruno or Rashford to kind of be one of those guys. I think there's 0% chance it's Bruno.
No,
you can't. It may be Rashford, and I think maybe a lot of fans wouldn't be super upset about that. But in like you said, he might be able to get away with it by just saying, "Look, I don't play with the player that plays with the strengths that, or the attributes that Rashford has. Like, I play a different system, and so he's got to go. So he may get out of it that way. And I think Rashford's probably got the lowest or the least cultural currency with the United fans as he's ever had. I think you'll probably see the least kind of negative response if he left now than, let's say, 2 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever, when he's kind of was being criticised previously. So I agree, man. It is interesting. We will see, and I just hope he gets more out of the players than we have been seeing this season. Because, the banter aside, we're not 14th. We're not the 14th best team in the league. There's no wild way we should be really outside the top 8, and that's being extremely kind. I think we should be in the top 6 and fighting for the top 4. When you look at how much money spent and the quality of the players that we have and the internationals and all this kind of stuff, I think there's no excuse to be below, the teams that we are. So let's hope, for my sake, Amorim turns the ship around. And like you said, they've pulled the trigger quick enough, I think, that we can't look and say that this season's written off. I've been tempted. I've kind of said it in anger when we've lost games, but the reality is 9 games in, you can't just sack it off now. He should have some expectation on this season. And hopefully, he can turn it around. But the Ten Hag era is over, man. Let's wrap up this section here then. Let's get into the United-West Ham game then. I just realised just now in our notes stock, I accidentally put 2-1 Man United. I guess that was the score I was hoping it to be. But it did finish West Ham 2, Man United 1. Crazy game, man. It was definitely a game of two halves. We absolutely peppered the living daylights out of them in that first half. Could have been 3 or 4-0 up. Garnacho is driving me nuts at the moment. He's so wasteful. It's unbelievable. He does so much, like, in a good way. And then he hasn't found his shooting boots properly this season. I feel like he's probably missed the most big chances, it feels like anyway, the most big chances in our game so far. Hits the bar with one, puts one wide when he really should have, got it on target. Bruno headed one over the bar. Dalot, obviously, with, contender of miss of the season, miss of the decade so far. Some conspiracies saying that Bruno and Dalot missed them on purpose to get him sacked. That's probably about the only way they get out of it, to be real, because that's mad. Shocking misses, bro. I'm pretty sure us two, 5-a-side settings, not played for too long, not the fittest we've ever been, would tuck at least Dallow's one away. Like, maybe not Bruno's one, but Dallow's
Bruno's one was actually, I think that's an elite ability to even get into that position, like running full tilt.
I'd expect better of him, though, man.
I'd expect him to hit the target, because I'd expect him to do it because he's a good player. But I can understand the Bruno one, but the Dalot one is like that biggest belief. I don't know how you missed that.
It's unforgivable, bro.
He's like, there's an angle of it. I saw a video on social media that shows you the whole goal. It's like, it starts in midfield with like Casemiro nutmegging someone.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then like the build up, and it just like, it breaks beautifully. And the part that would infuriate me as a fan is he even steadies himself.
I know.
He even does like, he does the right thing. He takes a breath. He lines it up, and he's just like, he misses it. It's like, that's the part that would infuriate me. It's one thing if you slash at it, you'd be like, oh, he's too rash. He needs to calm down. He did that, bro. He calmed down.
I know,
and he
bro.
Still missed it.
This is the thing. So on comms, they were saying he's taken the ball at the wrong point. Like, he didn't let it drop enough. But my point is, he actually did wait for it and compose himself. And then that's even more criminal. How do you wait, compose yourself, and still get the timing on it wrong and hit it at the wrong point? And second of all, it looks like he goes to like put it in the top corner. Like, what are you doing, broski? You've got an open goal. You just need to hit the target and it's a goal. Why are you trying to top bins it when, you're clean through on goal? It's ridiculous. And Dalot is one where, when the defender's in that position, and let's say, I don't know, who's one of your least technically gifted defenders, I don't know, Kiwi or I don't know, someone like that, is in that position, you go fair dues. Or not fair dues, you're livid, but you're like, it's a defender, it's a big guy, maybe he can't tuck it. Dallow's got good technique, bro. We've seen him wrap goals in the top corner. He strikes the ball generally really well, and he's one of our more attacking defensive players. There's just no excuse, man. And I'll tell you what, in the group chat, I was losing my head because Dallow's been poor for like the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, I don't think I've seen a good performance from him. And people go overboard with that. Last season he was up there with Ben White and Porro and all these guys, there was moments when I was flirting with agreeing with that take, but this season has just shown me like he's a roller coaster player. He either plays really well and he's like bombing up and down and really effective both ends, or he does this kind of stuff where he's looks like he doesn't know how to coordinate his feet. And also he was getting like the goal came from his side as well. Like defensively, he's also been lacking. And in that second half, West Ham make the changes, and typical, they come back in the game. They obviously score through Somerville, and that's again where I'm gonna put it on Dalot. He's sleeping at the back post. He doesn't look over his shoulder, and it's kind of the reasons we were lambasting Wan-Bissaka back in the days as well, being like he always used to get caught out the back post, not kind of getting his positional sense the right way. Dalot does the same, and they score. And yeah, sod's luck, we managed to equalise. I don't know if you saw the equaliser. Like I'm livid at Xerxes as well. Like he's been terrible as well since he's come in. Like he goes to head that, he's put it like 5 yards wide, mate. And if Casemiro's not there to divert it, that's a shocking miss.
I thought it was a good header from Casemiro because that actually came quite quickly.
That was quick, yeah.
It was quick, and he's right under the bar. He can 8 times out of 10 I see players putting that over the bar because you have to like control it so quickly, and you have to get your head just right. Now, I to be honest with you, Dalot wasn't great, but I will also say Somerville was fantastic. He was
he is good, man. He's a very good player.
That's the first time I've actually seen him. And it's very funny to me that like West Ham unearth these kinds of players who are like, oh, this guy's got something. And
they bench him. I don't understand it. Why are they benching him?
And he's on the bench. It's just like, dude, you're West Ham. I don't think you can afford to be benching players like this.
They do.
I think this guy needs to play.
And they go for Antonio up front and all these. It's one of the most baffling teams ever. West Ham. I'll never understand it. People are thinking Lopetegui comes in. He's not. He's a Spanish David Moyes, mate. He makes the same wild decisions ever. Get Somerville on, especially with Kudu's out. They needed something, and we can get got out. But yeah, he was great when he came on, and he was. I'm surprised he went to West Ham, to be honest. When Leeds went down, I thought someone bigger and maybe challenging for Champions League might take a look at him, like a Spurs or something like that. But yeah, he's a good player, man, and he caused us a lot of problems as soon as he came on.
He was very good.
Let's get to the penalty thing quickly, then, bro, because let's. I don't know about you. Is there anything else in the game to talk about? I mean, in that second half, the goals aside, it wasn't really eventful.
To be honest, I'll put up my stall and I'm saying this obviously as an Arsenal fan. Never a pin. Like that's not a pin.
Thank God.
That's never a pin, my guy. Like that was a nothingness. And in fact, okay, even if I accept that it was a penalty, the fact that the ref on the field said not for me. There was not enough in the actual footage to overrule that. So let's say the ref says, oh, okay, cool, it's a pin. It's one of those where it's like kind of umpires calling cricket kind of thing. Like, the ref blows the whistle. Guys like, have another look at that. And then he's like, you know what? There's not enough to overrule it. And they take the pin. You can accept that because he made the decision in real time. But to see it, say that's not a pin, go watch it again for a really long time. That's the part that was like, if you have to watch it for like 2 minutes, it's not clear anymore, is it?
No.
If you can't see it the first time, this is not clear anymore. So yeah, that was a bad decision. No good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in a certain sense. Well, I agree with you completely. Like, I think it was a call where the most shocking thing was the fact that it was overruled. Like, if it was given, I agree with you. I feel like the VAR would have just said, it's your call, mate. Yeah. Like referee's call or whatever. Howard Webb went on, Stick to Football, and he was talking about the introduction of the referee's call and how that was a suggestion from their like ex-player panel to try and make sure they weren't re-reffing games. And you know what? At sometimes I curse it, but I understand the logic, and I do think you need to give the referees the power again to referee the matches, especially with 50-50 calls. I think you're going to screw people either way. At least let the referee own it and not re-ref it. So I was shocked. Honestly, I was shocked when, it was recommended to go and look at the cameras, the monitors. Sorry, because We know what that means. And someone said something really interesting on, I can't remember, it was maybe a football content creator, or I saw it on a thread on X or Twitter or whatever, talking about the power dynamics involved in this too. So you got that guy, David Coots or whatever his name is, right? He's not a super senior referee. He's made the decision that it's not a penalty. You've got Michael Oliver in the VAR room, a very senior referee, right? And he's recommending him go and look at it on the monitor. Think about it in your workplace. If someone more senior than you suggests that you reverse a decision or do something else, there's immense pressure on you to actually do it against your better judgment, because he's more senior than you, or she's more senior than you, or whatever. And I'm 100% sure that's what happened, because you're right. He was at that screen for 2-3 minutes. You can tell he didn't want to change his mind. He didn't want to. And I'm sure he was hearing in his little stupid headpiece, like, I really recommend you do this, or have you considered this or that? And I think they've got it wrong. Now, 100% I agree with you. That was not a penalty, and I think I could accept it if the ref did make that decision. I would be livid, and I would say he got it wrong. But at least I would understand that the process seems to be following what we've been told is going to be the process. And I'll say, back to Ten Hag, probably for one of the last times on the pod this season, he did mention that in his post-match, and I understand why he was upset, because it is kind of like, why are you changing the process now in a game when you've used this process for every other game so far this season for the most part, and you've done it in the 90th minute to give away a penalty and really affect the outcome of the game. It was disgusting. It was a disgraceful way to end that game, but I do think you've got to put some blame on the players, because with the amount of chances we had in the first half, we should have been 4-0 up going into that second half, or at least 3-0, and you don't lose that game from there. Even we would have a tough time doing that. But
I mean, this is what I call. This is just what I call a phrase I've coined that I've used with you before. This is narrative XG. When it's your NXG.
It's back.
When you miss chances in the first half against a team that you're better than, you fill up their NXG bar, and it just keeps filling up with every chance that you miss, because they start thinking, oh, these guys can't score. These guys, doesn't matter what we do, these guys can't score. And your players start thinking, oh man, it's just not our day. And just when it's that moment you start to think it's just not our day, that's when it starts to happen. That's when weird shit happens. The referee makes a weird decision. The ball bounces strange. There's a deflection. There's all sorts of weird stuff starts to happen in the Premier League, especially when things like that get so close, especially away from home. So it was a bad result, and it's really interesting. Like, you're talking about the referee made a stinker. It's disgusting. It's cost West Ham. Sorry, it's cost United 3 points, but it's cost ultimately Ten Hag his job. If they draw there, do they pull the trigger? Do they linger on?
They don't, bro. They definitely don't. We've seen it, and that's kind of why I think Ten Hag's extended this stay of execution for so long, because he's just about got enough. And it is about the optics, because I will agree with you. I've really struggled to understand the strategy Ineos have taken around the management decision. But I think it's clear with hindsight again that what you said is true, and they've kind of just put the rope out there and just let Ten Hag hang himself. But it just took an almighty long time. I think longer probably than they thought, because he just kept getting draws here and there, and just saving himself when the opportunity had opened up for them to pull the trigger. And it's kind of sad in a way that this game was one of the game that was the final nail in the coffin, because I do kind of agree with this analysis at the end of the game. I do think they got screwed. I do think they played generally pretty well for 60 minutes. And if they could just find their finishing boots, we would have absolutely battered West Ham. But that's the way it goes, man. Unfortunately, life catches up with you, and it's not always fair in the final moments. But he's earned that firing for plenty of other games we've had where he's deserved to be fired. So it evens itself out, and in the end, I think the right thing happened. But last question on this game before we get to the Arsenal one: who do you think actually should take more blame for that defeat, because the same old narrative comes out and says it's the players. You need to get rid of the players. We've got all the players. They're throwing the manager on the bus. Always comes out with us. Most of the time, it's been probably on point. Do you think that this time that's fair, or do you think the manager needs to take blame? Ultimately, Ten Hag is right to be sacked and be blamed for that defeat because he could have done something better. Who do you think should really cop the most flack for that loss?
I think in this instance, it's the players. I think if the manager sets you up in a way that you can fashion up basically 4 clear-cut opportunities, it felt like within like 20 minutes. I think that the manager's done his job in that instance. Now, you can say that when, the situation is such that, you go goal down, it's 1-1. You have to change it. You have to do something else. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's fair. Maybe it's fair. So I'll go back to what you said just before, which is I don't think if all you have is this game, I don't think Ten Hag deserves to be sacked. But he deserved to be sacked plenty of times before this. But you guys, like, what can you do? The guy, your striker can't put the ball in the net. Guys missing open goals. You can't blame the coach for that. That's on the players. He's done his job. He's set them up well. He's created a formation where they can create chances. So yeah, for me, it was definitely the players in this one. And yeah, but yeah, now he goes. And fired into the sun like Team Rocket. They've sent him.
Man, bro, I'm not going to feel too sorry for him. I've seen some people online feel super sorry for him. I also saw pictures of him flying in a private jet back to Amsterdam. So, with £15 million in his pocket. So I'm not going to cry that hard for him. But yeah, ultimately, I do agree with you as well. I think the players take the lion's share of the blame for this game because the coach can't go out there on the field and finish the chances for him. Can't physically stop the referee giving dodgy penalties out. But at the same time, second half, you could feel the tide turning. You could see Somerville have an impact. You could see their subs bringing them to life. You got to do something, right? And I think the best coaches also are able to react and recognize when things need to be altered. And I don't think he did. So he definitely deserves some blame. But yeah, it's the way of the world, isn't it? It's probably the time where he deserves the least blame is the time that is ended his managerial career at United. But
for sure.
2-1, we're in 14th. It's not looking good. Let's go on to the Arsenal game then. The big game of the weekend. Directly after the West Ham United game, actually.
Yeah.
4:30, Sky Sports, Gary Neville doing all of his oohs and whatever. Arsenal 2, Liverpool 2. I've seen conflicting kind of analysis on the first half because I've seen some people say Arsenal started well. And I've seen some people say Arsenal started slow, and that the goal by Saka kind of puts a different slant to that beginning, and it wasn't the greatest start. But what do you think, first of all, with that start? Were you impressed by how you guys started the game, and obviously Saka's goal? I mean, bloody hell! I've never seen Robertson twisted up like that in my life. It was honestly a beautiful sight. Even as a Liverpool hater and an Arsenal hater, I loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I think we started very well, actually. I think they grew into the game really well. I got the impression, I was speaking to a Liverpool supporting friend of mine, and I think they're kind of, the idea is kind of taken hold in that fan base that like Robertson's legs are gone. He's come back from a long-term injury. So he's played a lot of football. Like there was a point in my life where it's like literally any time I turned on the TV, Robertson was playing. Like, going back to the pandemic and straight through. So it's interesting to see it, but like Saka had him on toast. He's got to do better there. I remember there's like a bit in Sky Sports in the studio where Jamie Carragher's like, "Oh, can Van Dijk do better?" It's like, what's Van Dijk supposed to do, man?
What can he do, man?
He's got him up against the touchline. The keeper's there as well. Like, the situation is in control. Like, there's people arriving in the box. Van Dijk can't just vacate his position to go and put out a fire that Robertson should easily be able to put out. And then even when he beats Robertson, he has to find that finish. He has to like shoot it so hard and so high on his near post. No keeper can stop that. No. So it was just like, this is one of those where you have to hold up your hands. Like sometimes, it's just a good goal. But yeah, I thought 2-1 was probably a fair reflection. I thought Arsenal deserved that going into the break.
Yeah, no, I agree.
How did you see it? How was like with a more kind of neutral bent?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not actually neutral with this game, to be honest, because I did want Arsenal to win, because there's no one in this land I hate more than Liverpool. So I wanted you guys to win. But I was a little bit more underwhelmed with the start. I have to admit, I'm kind of used to the Arsenal, like, especially at home, just like swarming people and going big in the first 10 minutes and just like suffocating people. I know we haven't seen as much of it this season. So maybe, that's me being nostalgic from last season, the season before, with you starting in that way. But I kind of expected that with the atmosphere, because it sounded like it was jumping, bro. From even just watching it on TV, it sounded like you guys really brought the ruckus. But you didn't really go after it like I kind of expected you to. And I think the Saka goal really brought the game to life. And I feel like then, you saw more duels. And I feel like I've got to give prop to Rice and Marino, because I think in midfield, they did really well. Like Curtis Jones had a pretty smelly game. I think McAllister just looked so lightweight. And I think Gravenberch just had his hands full. And, he's been doing really well. And he did still kind of, manage to hold his own to a certain extent. But I think Rice has had a slow start to this season. But I feel like that was his coming out party for this season. Like, he was really impressive, both on set pieces. I think his cross for Marino's goal was outstanding. I think he flung one in like earlier. Marino should have scored it slightly earlier. So he was cooking up unbelievably from his set pieces. But just him and Marino, I felt like they kind of really imposed themselves on that midfield, and I don't necessarily kind of associate those kind of performances with those two. Like, I know Rice has got an engine. I know he goes up and down, but I feel like physically he was there. He was ready. And Marino too. Like, I haven't seen that much from Marino, but I didn't think he was that type of player. I thought he was more like kind of a cultured, get the ball, play it kind of player. But he was putting himself about, and I think you just about shaded that first half, and I think 2-1 was fair. What do you think about all this set piece stuff? Because I know people are doing it for banter, but every time you seem to concede a goal by a set piece, it's like, oh, the set piece kings have got done on the set pieces. They're obviously not that good at it. But I feel like, the set piece that Liverpool scored, it was just like, it's pretty good. Kind of a bit of a domino effect, really. Like, it was a really good flick on, and I don't know how you could defend that much better, to be honest. But I don't know, what's your take on it? Because obviously the second and third goal, both set pieces, right? Positive and a negative. What was your take on them?
I would imagine that it probably has something to do with the fact that Saliba's not on the field.
True.
Saliba and Gabriel have such a good understanding. And then I guess in set pieces where you're all kind of very close together, who has who and who has to stand in what place is much more important and somewhat intuitive, because it all happens in a second. And so, yeah, maybe that's a kind of easy explanation for it. Arsenal just didn't have the set piece guys there. It's interesting you mentioned about Marino, because I thought I've actually been a little bit underwhelmed with Marino.
No, me too.
I don't.
This is the first time.
I don't really see what he's supposed to bring in that Arsenal midfield, because he's supposed to be in the kind of the left-hand side of that, which is Ødegaard's role. Obviously, he's not going to be Ødegaard. Ødegaard's a kind of one-of-one special player. I'm not quite sure if he's supposed to do the same thing as Rice. If they're kind of like 2 8s, and then you kind of have Rice. How are they playing at the moment? They're playing kind of with like Trossard on the left, Marino on the right, Rice a little bit further back, Partey at right back in this instance.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the balance is. It does seem that like Marino and Rice are very, very similar to me. And Trossard is not, he's not having the best of times, and he's way too lightweight for midfield. So that's also probably another thing that I was going to say. There's probably another reason why you don't see that kind of blitz in Arsenal playing teams off the field, is that we don't have that lineup of death of, Partey, Ødegaard, Rice. and there's like you can't get the ball back. Like you just pinned back in your half, and every time you kick it long, Saliba's carrying it back into midfield. I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. We just don't have those. The injury situation being what it is, we can't play the same way that I think we'd want to play. However, we are doing the right thing, which is doing what we can, like doing what we can to stay competitive and to not just lose games like. That's the best you can do, I think, in the scenario that we're in at the moment.
Minus the Bournemouth game, yeah.
Minus the Bournemouth game, of course. Minus the Bournemouth game.
But yeah, all right, yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. I think I've kind of avoided all this like, oh, we've got injuries chat, because I feel like teams always do that when they get a few injuries. Like we get the violins out. But from a set piece perspective, from a fluidity perspective, you guys have lost enough players that it's going to have an impact. So I think it's fair to point that out. I think it's different for Liverpool because I've heard them also kind of combat that narrative when they've heard it and said, we don't have Alisson, we don't have Jota. And I understand those are important players, but I don't think they're that pivotal to a style of play for Liverpool. I just think that they are top quality. Like I think Kelleher is actually a very, very good goalie and can imitate a lot of the things that Alisson could do in terms of build up and style of play. He's not as good of a shot stopper. He's obviously not Alisson, but I don't think Kelleher coming in affects the style of play massively. And I don't think Jota coming out and one of their other very competent forwards coming in for him affects their style of play. I think it affects their efficiency. Jota's mad efficient with chances. He generally tucks them away. So sure. Fantastic. It can affect like your conversion rates and stuff like that, and with Kelleher, it can affect your shot save percentage. But I don't think it affects the style of play the same way. Losing Odegaard, losing Saliba, losing some players that you guys have lost, because I do feel like that affects your style massively. I think you haven't got like for like replacements to bring in if those guys get injured. So I think it's a fair point, and I don't think I know injuries are injuries, but I think there's some injuries that are negligible and some that like literally tear the house down or going to make you go to a totally different style of play. And I think that's fair completely to point that out.
To be fair as well, I think Arteta's had this coming. Like Arsenal's players last season had more minutes than pretty much anyone. Like that makes sense that these kind of things would happen. Just a little bit on Liverpool though. I think it's interesting. The Arsenal, the game kind of broke out. So we got to halftime, it was 2-1. I thought Liverpool actually, the only mistake we made was trying to kill them off on the break. I think if we sat back, I think we could have seen that out. Just because, go on.
No, I think I agree with you, but it's weird, bro, because the narrative I've seen out, and I don't know if it's just banter, the narrative I've seen and heard and, it's bounding around group chats and stuff is that Arsenal did sit back. But actually watching that second half, I don't think you did. I just think it's a natural thing when you're 2-1 up. You're not going to go gung-ho. You're not going to press them about the pitch everywhere. And then you lose a couple of guys. You lose Gabriel and Timber. Of course, the players that come in are not that as aggressive as Gabriel and Timber, so they naturally will do their defensive job. But I don't think you like did a Mourinho and did, the low block football and parked the bus at all. I think actually if you'd done that, like you just said, you probably don't get hit on the counter with the Trent ball over the top. And you probably just sit back and you force Liverpool to kind of do what City did when they managed to get their equaliser, which is just keep banging the door down and get like a lucky break, which kind of I think City did with a Stones goal, like a ricochet, and then it bounces to them and they score. Yeah. I think that would have probably been the only way Liverpool would have equalised if you did do that. But the narrative's there, so I don't know. I guess you agree with me, right? That you don't think Arsenal did sit deep.
I thought the opposite. I think we didn't sit deep enough. I think we should have. I think we should have sat back because I think it got to about 80 minutes. Liverpool looked really kind of out of ideas. Like Trent was like kicking it over the bar,
spamming it.
But then I think we lose Timber on the left hand side, and the young guy comes on. I forget his name.
Lewis Kelly.
Lewis Kelly comes on, and Lewis Kelly is like he's young. He's trying to affect the game. And Arteta said something that's really interesting. He said that we go up on the left hand side, Martinelli lose, we don't finish the action. And I think that's important because what you're saying there is it's not a case of going up the field and losing the ball. It's like if you go up the field, you either take a shot or you foul someone or something. But the ball, you can't just lose it when we're not in a good shape. Because Trent Alexander-Arnold just plays like just a killer ball. And that's it. I think it's interesting that Arsenal were able to hold Liverpool out for so long, even though Arsenal weren't playing too well. It's an interesting thing, I think, with Liverpool. Liverpool are one of those teams. Sorry, Brighton are like this a lot as well, actually. In order for Liverpool to kind of play well, you kind of have to play with them. You have to kind of be trying to play it out from the back and doing all of these things that they like to do and play to their tempo. The moment you stop playing with them and you go down, there's free kicks, it's niggly, there's long balls, they don't like that. Arsenal have kind of mastered the art of we'll play loads of different ways in general. But Liverpool are one of those teams I find when the game is when the game's going at their tempo, which is 1,000,000 miles an hour, they're very happy. And I thought we did a really good job of kind of stopping their rhythm. But at the end of the day, there's good players on the field. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, these are elite players. So you do kind of have to hold your hands up as well in the score part.
Yeah, that's the way I was kind of describing it. I feel like overall team performance, probably you guys still edged it in my perspective. But I think the honest truth is, Liverpool got 3, maybe 4 world-class players. And those players show up regularly. So Van Dijk and Salah in this, they basically do that 9 games out of 10, have come up big and pulled the result out. And I think that's the equalizer in a game of football. If you've got that bit of stardust and those world-class players, you can have 11 of 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 players. But if you've got 3 or 4 10 out of 10s, that can balance it out, and I think that's what happened. What's your take, real quickly, before we wrap up this segment, on the disallowed goal? Because I have seen some fans outraged by it, quite upset, going against what you said earlier, the kind of us against the world type thing with the referee. Because I don't think Antony Taylor had the greatest game.
No.
What do you make of it? Because I think it was disallowed for a Kivior foul on Szoboszlai, right? I think he jumped over him and headed the ball, and that's the foul that was given. What do you make of it?
Very soft foul. Not a foul for me. I think throughout the game he's been kind of reffing those fouls very loosely. There's plenty of games or plenty of situations throughout the game where he's doing this, where he's telling players to get up. He wasn't letting players buy cheap fouls. And in that instance, that was a very, very cheap foul. So that was annoying. That was annoying. Although I do get the impression there were things that happened subsequently that probably suggest why it wouldn't have been a goal. Is Havertz jumped up, the ball touched his arm. His boot was really high when the keeper came in for the ball as well. So there's probably other things that it would have been overturned on, but not that foul, not the foul that he gave it for. But I'm kind of agnostic at this point. I was like, to be honest, let's leave that as it is. I don't think that's an important talking point for the Arsenal in this instance.
Yeah, I don't think he was great, the referee, but I don't think he had an absolute howler. I was just confused what it was for, because like you said, there were a couple of other little points in that move where I thought it could have been for that, and I would have looked at it and been like, okay, again, kind of harsh, but I can kind of see where you're coming from in terms of a high boot. I initially thought it was for Havertz kind of leaning into Trent on the line, and he goes flying into the goal. I thought he kind of shoulder barged him a bit to get to that ball once he lifted it over the keeper. I thought that was what it was for. But I thought the Kivior one was super soft. But overall, I don't think it's something to go too big on. But what do you think in the perspective, quickly before we wrap it up? Do you think it's 2 points dropped or 1 point gain? And how do you feel about this title race now? Because it's obviously, people are swapping positions now every week. So how are you making the title race so far?
I think it's 2 points dropped. I think Arsenal had enough to win that game when it was 2-1. I think Were it not for those injuries, and I'm talking about the injuries in game. By the way, big shout out to Ben White just playing centre back like he's been
He
playing
played really well, man.
like just like he's been playing it for ages, and it isn't the first time in ages that he's played it. I think that's 2 points dropped. I think we had enough to see that out, because I don't think Liverpool would have scored on us if we actually properly parked the bus. I think that's a big problem Arsenal have when they go up, especially at home. Away from home, it's very clear. We're parking the bus. It's haram football. But I think when we're at home, sometimes when we have to move between different styles of football, we struggle. And I think that was another example of it. That's why it's 2 points dropped for me. In terms of the actual title race, I am fine. I'm so fine with this, just because this is now the third season or the second season that my team's been in a title race. I think it's you should try it sometime. It's really good stuff. But it's so long. It's so long, and you have to pace yourself. There's no point being like top of the league. I've seen us be top of the league at New Year's and lose it. It's like,
was it 270 days or something?
Yeah, so this is completely fine. Let Liverpool be pace setters. Let Liverpool run out front and catch all the wind and do all of get all the headlines and get all of the psychodrama. City and Arsenal just stay back here. We'll just stay in touch. And then somewhere in February, March, hopefully everyone's fit. Erdegaard's doing well. And we can kind of start putting those results together and we can start winning big games. But as for right now, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Yeah, I think had you lost this game, it might have been a little bit different and it might have been a bit more concerning. But I still would agree with you on that. The same thing we were saying about Amorim coming in, and there's plenty of season to turn it around. What are you, 5 points behind City? I think City are top with 5 points. Liverpool second, and I think you're still 4 points behind them. So, everyone's in touch and distance. You've still got to play both of those teams one more time. They've still got to play each other 2 times. There's loads of other good, strong teams, your Villas and your Chelseas who are cooking right now as well, who can take plenty of points off them. So it's really early days. It's more just like striking a blow on one of your nearest rivals and the psychological kind of impact that you can get. In terms of the actual points, I think you guys are fine. I think people just need to remember it's a marathon, man. It's not a sprint, and you guys have been in it for a couple of seasons now, so you're getting that experience to understand it. I think sometimes it's just a passion of, like you said, I think you probably did deserve to nick it, and had you gone with a slightly more conservative approach in those last 15 minutes, I don't think Liverpool would have been able to break you down. It didn't look like they were. So from that sense, I get it's frustrating, but 2-2 is not a terrible result. And I'm seeing a trend now with the bigger games too, where there's more draws, man. There's more draws in these big games between Liverpool and City and Arsenal and City and Liverpool, and there's a bit more kind of awareness of not wanting to take the loss home and away. So let's see how it goes. Let's get into the preview then. Upcoming, you've got a really tough game, man. I didn't realize your run of games at the moment is pretty smelly on paper. You're traveling away to Newcastle. I think it's a Saturday 12:30, which, God, the organisers have screwed you, haven't they? How the hell are your fans going to get all the way to Newcastle for a 12:30 kickoff? That's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Bloody hell. And then United have got Chelsea. And I saw some funny stuff about how Chelsea fans were begging Ten Hag to just stay for one more game so they could get the W. And
the voucher.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we've got Chelsea. So let's start with the Arsenal-Newcastle game. St. James's Park. Last year, that was a controversial one, wasn't it? That was Joe Linton's... I think, was it Joe Linton scoring or Gordon or something? And there were very dubious decisions. Yeah. What do you think? How do you think this game's going to go, first of all? And what have you made of Newcastle's start?
Newcastle looking very smelly. I think they really struggle. They're really struggling to score. Unless Isak does something, they really struggle. I think this is for the Arsenal. Also, I think one of the big benefits of St. James's Park is one of the big benefits of Newcastle. That's an amazing stadium, and the atmospheres can get on top of you. 12:30 could be a little bit sleepy, maybe. So I think Arsenal get the dub there, just because Newcastle have not been very good attacking wise, and I think if Arsenal are kind of secure in defence, I think they can manufacture a chance for the rest of the time.
Yeah, what score prediction are you going to go for then?
3-1.
Okay, damn. You're expecting, I wouldn't say a resounding win, but it's quite comfortable win, right? 3-1.
Yeah, no, actually, it wouldn't be comfortable. I expect it to be 1-1 for quite a bit, and then
some late goals. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think 12:30 is a terrible kickoff time for the exact reasons that you said. Like it can go one of a couple of ways. Like you can either the fan base can be really on it and they started necking the pints and the pale ales and stuff like that for breakfast, or people can be still have the crust in their eyes from just waking up a couple of hours earlier and not quite be up for it. So it can really go either of those ways. And I think it's not the greatest fixture to have. I think because it's kind of one of those ones where you really need to be up for it. So you come in off a big win would give you a bit of a bounce, or if you come in off a defeat, it can kind of give you the fire to overcome what's normally like a pretty difficult match and hostile environment. But I have not been impressed with Newcastle one bit, and I actually think where they sit in the table has flattered them. I think they probably should have dropped more points than they have. I don't know if they've just realised they're playing football and not rugby, but they've completely misunderstood how to play football in terms of scoring goals and like trying to win games. Apart from some Harvey Barnes screamers, which I can remember in a couple of games, I can't remember them doing much attacking wise. And I think they've actually gone a bit stale, bro. I think that's the real thing. And I don't blame Eddie Howe. I just think they've kind of been hamstrung by all the FFP and PSR stuff, so they haven't been able to reinvigorate that squad. And I think they've also probably just made the wrong decisions. It may have actually been worth selling a Bruno G or an Isak or something to get the funds in to reinvigorate that squad. Because I'm sure you would have taken Isak off their hands. I'm sure Man City would have taken Bruno G off their hands when they're looking for a midfielder. Like I'm sure they would have had offers, and I think keeping those players has ended up kind of making things go a bit stale. So I actually agree. I don't think it will be comfortable, but I think this has got like a tight Arsenal win written all over it. So I'm going to go for Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2. And I think you guys will grab the victory, and I think it'll be deserved, but you probably will make it harder for yourselves than necessary because Newcastle are not. I don't believe in them. Let's go on to the United Chelsea game. I think it's a Sunday 2 p.m. if I'm not correct, or maybe the late game. It's looking like this is going to be Amorim's first game if everything goes to plan. Amorim versus Maresca. A lot of people believing in Maresca already and hyping him up and, talking about their board manager, etc. I have been impressed, more impressed than I was initially. The stuff I'd seen of him at Leicester, it didn't move me. And I wasn't expecting things to be quite as good for them as they have been. But I think they've finally realised Enzo is absolutely horse. And they've decided they're going to go for Lavia and Caicedo in midfield.
Yeah.
And it's working out very nicely for them because that's a really good combo. And that's actually, along with Cole Palmer, the big thing that's worrying me in this game is will our midfield be up for that battle with those two? Because, Lavia is just one of those guys, man. I think he's kind of been missing like Malacia, and people have been like, where is he? Is he alive? Or etc. But he's come back and he's just a really good player, man. Yeah. And I think this game is going to be much trickier than it has been in seasons gone by. I've almost felt very comfortable when we've played Chelsea in the last couple of years, almost big bro in them and kind of thinking that they're even rubbisher than us. But I think they may be onto a winning formula with their manager and some of the players they've been playing. So I think it's going to be a really tight one. But I've got to back the new manager bounce. So I'm going to go for United to win, but I'm going to go 3-2 Man U. But I'm not saying it with any kind of chest or bass in my voice. I think it could easily be a high-scoring draw or a defeat. But what do you think, first of all, on the game, and what have you made of Chelsea so far? Because you've got them soon as well, haven't you? You're going to Stamford Bridge soon.
I think it's going to be a tough one, just because I think I could be very tricky to play Chelsea at this point. They have been doing well. I am a little bit kind of unsure if the way that Maresca wants to play is the same way that the players want to play. He's a proper like Pep disciple. And Cole Palmer's like, allow that, man. Like, I left
street baller.
Yeah, he left because he doesn't want to do that. And I think I think everything can kind of be fine and you can get away with it, but eventually that's going to come to a head. When your best player is like basically only works outside of that kind of function, the kind of like the heavy possession football and the quite slow and cautious build up. That's not them. So if Maresca changes his ways, it might be interesting, but I have a feeling that he wouldn't. In terms of the United Chelsea game, that's so tough. Like, my feeling is 2-2. I think there will be a bounce, and to be honest, for United, given where United are and where Chelsea is, 2-2 is a pretty good result, in my opinion. It just kind of stabilised, because United coming off a series of not great results and managing to kind of draw with Chelsea, this kind of high-flying Chelsea at this point of the season, would not be too bad. It's like stabilizing areas. So that would be my prediction. But in general, I'm still kind of I'm not sure about Chelsea, just because I think this is just a little bit too. It doesn't quite fit. It doesn't quite fit. One thing that is good is that Conference League is actually very, very good for them to actually get their players out there playing, get the youngsters some good minutes. So, that's kind of where I'm at. 2-2.
Yeah, I actually think that's probably the smartest bet for this game, because I think you're right. I think maybe the Chelsea fans won't be happy with that result, because they've kind of they've seen Tottenham come to Old Trafford, they've seen Liverpool come to Old Trafford and absolutely blow us away, and they've had a really impressive start too in terms of their league position and performances and results and stuff. So they might be expecting the same. But I think if you were to ask both managers what result they would be comfortable with as a worst case scenario, I think they'd both accept a draw. For Amorim, it doesn't start with a defeat, and for Maresca, it's not going away to another big team and losing after the Liverpool one. So I think they both take it, but I guess we're coming in obviously off 14th place, stinking up the joint compared to Chelsea. The expectations might be different, I guess, for the fan bases. But I don't know. It's one of those games where even if Chelsea are playing quite well, I think it's one of those games where they think, and they might be right with this, that they have a shot at really putting us to the sword, and is opened them up to counter-attacks where we've previously punished them. Thinking of the last couple of games we've had at Old Trafford, where I think we beat them 2-1 last season, then we beat them 4-1 or 5-1 the season before, and we've absolutely pummeled them a few times playing that exact way. So I think that's still possible, but I think I'm going for 3-2 just because it may go that way, but I just think we're too vulnerable to win like a game convincingly at the moment. And I think if we do win, it's probably by a goal here or there rather than anything more convincing. But all right, cool. So I've gone 3-2, you've gone 2-2. We'll see how those games go in reality. I'm letting Jonty know right now, Lincoln's results are counting towards your prediction table,
wow.
mate.
Strong.
But he's already smacking me. So I've got 10 points so far. He's got 22. So yeah, I'm relegation fodder, mate. I'm performing like Man United as well, and he's like Arsenal. So I need you to stink it up for him so that I've got a chance to come back into this. But yeah, thanks a lot, Lincoln, man. This was a good episode. I think we'll wrap it up here. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.